Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, March the 4th, 2026, and it's 6:02 p.m. And I'd like to welcome you to the City of Somerville Zoning Board of Appeals. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of the 2025, this meeting of the Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation. A recording of these proceedings can be found online under agendas, minutes, and more. Joining us tonight is your board. We've got Ann Brockelman, she's our vice chair. Olivia Mobai, Zach Zaremba, Brian Cook is our acting clerk tonight. Cecilia Daglian, and I'm Susan Fontano, the chair. Joining us and supporting us and getting us on the road from the staff is our liaison, Kit Luster. From ISD, we have Josh Mannion. Is it Mannion? Did I say that right? Yep. Legal department is David Shapiro. And our executive staff is Dan Bartman. So let's see what we got here. Under general business, we have the minutes from February 4th, 2026. Mr. Clerk.
Yes, Madam Chair. I move to approve the minutes of February 4, 2026.
Second.
Seconded by Ann Brockelman. All in favor as we go around, please say aye. Brian Cook.
Aye.
Cecilia Daglian.
Aye.
Zach Zaremba.
Aye.
Ann Brockelman.
Aye.
Olivia Mobide. And I am Susan Fontano, and I vote aye. Let the record show all members voted in the affirmative. Thank you. Next tonight is the continuance of 17 Hudson Street and also another, a newer addition. So I'd like the acting clerk to please take care of the motions.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'd like to open the case of 17 Hudson Street, ZP 26-000009. Denise Provost seeks an administrative appeal of the building official's issuance of building permits B 25-000072 and B 25-000077.
Thank you. The applicants here, Mr. White, Ms. Provost.
This is Kit. I've
Yes.
promoted the applicants and they should be joining shortly.
Good. Good evening, Ms. Provost.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for
Good.
being
How you doing?
I'm doing fine, but I keep getting email from people who were trying to get on and the links that they found don't work. So I
Did you
think
tell
we're
them
a
what to
small
do?
group tonight.
Did you
Did
tell
I
them
tell
what
them
to do?
what to do? Well, it's short notice. I mean, clearly the city website is there. So I don't know what the problem is.
Okay, so they can't even listen in right now.
Evidently not.
This is Kit. I've checked the city calendar for the March 4th ZBA meeting, the agenda and the legal notice, and what I found was that the links were for the March 4th zoning board meeting. So I'm not sure where the incorrect link is being found, but those places have the correct link to register.
That's how I got on. So
Yeah.
I agree with you that that link works. So I don't know what the problem is.
Okay. All right. I don't know what else to say. As long as this notice is right, and like you said, you looked it up. Okay. Is there any way of putting it on an email someplace at this level, Kit, or is that by the wayside now?
I don't think we'd be able to do that now, but
Okay.
the notice card that was sent out to abutters also has the correct link.
You checked it all, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Sorry about that, Ms. Provo. Sorry about that. Good evening, Mr. White.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
And I also see we have Ms. Vigorito. And let's see, I mentioned everybody else. So let's
Chair,
go to town here. Yes, I'm
Evan
good, thank you.
Spellman from Kalsa Design. He's our architect, as well as Jason Santana. He is the developer. I believe they were both promoted.
Yes, yeah, Evan Stellman is the architect.
Yes.
Yes, and who's the other person?
Jason Santana. He is the developer.
Okay, okay, all right, thank you. Okay, Mr. White, Ms. Provost would like to go first.
I'll go first, Madam Chair, if it's agreeable. So, good evening. This is basically going to be a re-argument of the points that were raised in connection with the first appeal, because they're all similar and involve the same legal issues. I'm going to apologize up front because I was unable to get to my office, and I have a dog here, so hopefully it's going to be moved so the dog will not be barking and upset the proceedings. But if so, I'll have to deal with it. So anyway, this is, I hope, going to be the last time that I'm before the Zoning Board of Appeals. And I know there are a number of members who were not on the ZBA when I served for my 24 years on the Somerville City Council. And I also want to alert the members that I am here not so much as the attorney for Ms. Provo, but as a former city councilor who was seeing a lot of the hard work that he and other people put in to try to make sure that Somerville would be a balanced community where everyone had a chance to rent and to buy a house, have been radically changed by the practices of the staff. And what I've done today, because you folks should not be in the middle of this, Madam Chair. You work with the staff, you work with the building department. So I've submitted 4 zoning amendments to the City Council today so that the City Council can address the issues that I've raised on policy matters. And many of the people who are equally upset as I am will have the ability to speak before the City Council. And they will also have the ability to monitor what's going on. So why am I so upset? You folks are the body that deals with our neighborhood residents. And from 1995 on, when I got involved in, and even before that, you see, when I was a student at Harvard College, I took land planning courses, and I would use Somerville as a model. So I've actually go back to see the development of the city from streetcars, the effect that the trains had originally. So I think I have an institutional knowledge that's second to none. So what's going on in our neighborhood residences? Because of the lot split policy that planning staff has recommended, which you then in turn adopted, in the view that backyard cottages can be luxury condominiums, which are not accessory to the main building, regular people are being priced out of Somerville. Because you see, what a lot of the developers are doing is that they're looking for single and 2-family homes that they can knock down, build 3 luxury condominiums, as well as the 4th backyard cottage. Because of the development potential that is present, they will outbid any, or I call them an ordinary, or let's say a working class, or a less than wealthy group of people who might want to buy a house. For instance, I think back to the old days in Somerville when, say, even a triple family, you might get 3 immigrants together, brother, 2 sisters, or whatever, and they would be able to buy the house, or sometimes they'd split it and they would have the rental unit. Those aren't available now. They're being priced out. And the 3 families that could also promote a backyard cottage, they're not knocking them down, they're converting the 3 units to condos. So throughout the city, in our neighborhood residential districts, these are being developed at the cost of renters and potential homeowners. And also it's created a hole in the condominium conversion ordinance, because instead of converting, say, a 2-family house where they would have to go to the condominium board, they're knocking it down. And when you knock something down and rebuild, you're not subject to condominiums. So tenants are also being forced out. This is the direct result of what's been taking place in our district. And that is the reason why I filed the 4 zoning amendments. So what I would like to do now is go through the zoning provisions in Mass General Law.
Pardon me?
And I am sort of technically somewhat incompetent. Okay, if I can share the screen, I hope I will be able to do that. Okay.
What is it you want? Excuse me, Mr. White. What is it you want to do right now?
Basically, I think it would be good to actually go through the Somerville zoning provisions in Mass law that I brought up so that I can explain the position.
Is this not something you've done already?
No, I did not share my screen with any of these. It'll be very quick, okay, and I think I will be able to respond to
You know,
some.
I'm trying to, okay, I don't want to say no to you, but what I want you to all keep in mind tonight, we want to deal with what we're dealing. I don't want to add more layers to the cake. You know what I'm saying?
You're not
Because
going
we really want to, we're trying to resolve this for you folks as much as for ourselves. I mean, we want new information. If you have something that's helpful, I mean, even at some point, I'm going to open up the public portion again tonight. You know, we're trying to be as accommodating and playing by the rules as possible. So I don't know what you can be bringing up tonight that we're not already aware of.
Well, some people raised questions in their comments that I never had a chance to address at the last meeting.
Our people, the zoning board? Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes,
So-
please.
So can I share my screen?
Kid, can Mr. White, can you change the screen for him, please?
You should have the ability to share your screen now.
Oh, okay, yep. So the first thing I wanted to do was people commented on the photos, okay? This is the photo basically that can show.
Mr. White, I'm sorry to interrupt. We don't see your screen quite yet. Just you'll have to hit the green button down at the bottom, and
Oh.
there'll be a pop-up, and it'll ask you which window you'd like to share.
Oh, I see. So it'll go through the window. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. So,
There we go.
Beautiful.
All right. So this
Perfect.
is purely an artist's rendering of the 4 units that can go on a 6,200 square foot lot based on the building permit and the current practice of the building department and staff. Okay, I did not anyone think that this is what is going in Denise Provo's the property abutting Denise Provo. Okay, the property abutting Denise Provo. Let me see if I can share that. Is basically the 3 of them. I can't call that one out. So as opposed to the 4, the unit in the left corner is not there. So it's 3 structures and not 4. Okay.
Okay.
So
Go
now-
back to your picture. Gotcha.
All righty. So then basically there was a question raised with regard to chapter 48. Okay. And I want to make clear that my reference to chapter 48 only deals with the requirement of that Massachusetts general law for an amendment to the zoning ordinance. So my argument is that effectively Mr. Bartman, through you folks, okay, has amended the Somerville zoning ordinance in a manner that does not meet the provisions of chapter 48. Because basically a zoning ordinance may be adopted only in certain ways, okay? It has to go to the planning board first for a hearing and then the city council. And the city council has to approve it by a 2/3 vote and the mayor has to sign. So zoning provisions are one of the most dear provisions that the state legislature has given municipalities. It requires a 2/3 vote of the council and a public hearing where the public can weigh in. No other provision in state law requires that. For instance, the budget requires a public hearing, but it's only a majority vote. City charter does require more, but that's not a normal thing. So basically, zoning is the greatest protection. Now, there was also confusion about the subdivision plan approval. And I want to make sure that I am not, how do I say, demeaning Mr. Bartman. I work with him and I have tremendous respect for his abilities. This is just a difference of opinion that we have, and I don't render it in any way, sense, or form to be personal. So there was the whole issue about subdivision approvals, where the city of Somerville was exempt from it. So here's what our zoning code says is, yes, the provisions of what, the Massachusetts land planning or whatever you want to call it, subdivision law, do not apply to the city of Somerville. But once that was enacted by the state, then Board of Aldermen said subdivision plan approval does not apply to lot splits, lot merges, and lot line adjustments. So whatever the benefits are of that expedited process that we could use, the city council and the old Board of Aldermen said, no, we're going to cover this by our zoning. Okay? And you further go on, and under this section 10.1.1, development review, it says that lot splits, lot merges, and lot line adjustments require site plan approval. And you can see, I won't go over all with you folks, but you can see the tremendous provisions that are in here to provide protection to neighborhoods. And this is especially important because in the zoning ordinance, you are given site plan approval for lot splits, okay? So that people who are affected in the neighborhood would have the ability to receive notice and in an open process appeal it to you. And then it also gives you folks the ability to regulate conditions. Now, Denise spoke about the damages that were done to her lot. The Madonna, the people going through the property, trespassing. Now, we did not intend to introduce that to somehow say these, to hold it against the developer. And I know one of the members of the board said that. That was not our intention. Our intention is to show the protection that neighborhoods are deprived of when it does not go to the zoning board of appeals that would have ongoing control over it. So how did this come about? Okay, how is it that these strict provisions of the Somerville zoning ordinance were done away with? Well, the city council passed this section right here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, where it says rules and procedures of a minor site plan approval process for development activities that do not require the procedural steps for site plan approval, but are still deserving of plan review. So that was given to your honorable board. Now, I reviewed the meeting minutes, and there was no discussion of why lot splits fit within this. Basically, it was merely the adoption to include lot splits. Now, under state law, whenever a zoning board or any administrative agency of the city is given authority to enact rules and regulations, they have to give a basis to establish it. And that was not done here. Plus, it still said that it deserves plan review. There's no plan review here. As we discussed, it basically this goes to Mr. Bartman. There's no public input or anything, and the item is approved as of right. So there are no protections given to anyone in the neighborhood. And again, especially because this is an NR, you see the planning board is in a different position. They are the authority for the areas that have already been determined to have denser development, not like our neighborhood residents. So what you've done does not even meet, this provision. And again, I'm not being critical. You were given it. You were told it was probably the right thing to, to reduce red tape or whatever. But as I discussed at the opening, it's having substantial effect on our neighborhood residents. So that's the main part. And the other thing is there was discussion about the difference between accessory structures and principal structures, etc. But they all have the term ancillary. And as we spent a lot of time at the last meeting, ancillary generally means that it is part of or utilized by a principal building. And that does not happen when you have a condominium. My belief when I voted on these back when they were going through the process was that an accessory structure was going to be there for rental. So what it was not designed to do was to basically create a bonanza for developers in our NR districts to create luxury condominium developments and price out renters and price out regular, I'll say non-affluent folks who might want to buy a house. And that's the consequence that we're facing here. Now, I'm also very honest. I think I had that reputation. And we'd raised the claim about affordable housing unit. And having reviewed all of the documentation and the process that was used, I believe that there is no affordable unit required. I went by the computer type thing that you would press to determine the affordable units, but that is superseded by the change in the zoning. So for the record, I'm withdrawing that challenge to the building permit. Now, I know you don't want anything new, but because it is before you, and I sent the materials to Kit to see if the building department wanted to look at it, there are variance requests that this developer has sought before the Architectural Access Board. Some of them are pending. One of them was granted that required a lease provision, that there be a provision in the lease that if a rentor wanted the accommodation, then they had to do it. Now, I was surprised by that because this has been presented to the city as a condominium development. I looked at the application of the developer and it said it was going to be rental. Now, since that representation was made to the Architectural Access Board, I believe your honorable body should put in a condition that these not be condominiums, that they be rental units. If that was because that's clear to me to be the representation that was made in the application for the variance by the developer. There are other avenues to proceed, but from your
Excuse me, Mr. White, on that variance, where are you finding that? Under what?
The variance requests are on the AAB website, and the decision was as well. The application was, I forget where I found the application, but
but you see, that's not under our purview at all.
No. I'm not saying that you folks should participate in that, but what I'm saying is the developer filed requests for building permits for the usage of a condominium. They represented to the Architectural Access Board that they were going to be rentals. If they made that representation,
that's okay. But see, this is what I was talking about earlier when I asked you what you wanted to show us. We want to get on with our business at hand right now.
All right, then I am making that point for when I file. I mean, should you file? Should we have to go to court? I just want to make sure that I served all my rights. Okay.
All right.
And I didn't want to alert you folks to that fact. Maybe somebody else can challenge the building permit then. But I appreciate, again, all of your indulgence on this.
Thank you. So now, let's see here. Right now, I think we're going to open up the public portion. Kit, can we do that now?
Certainly, Chair Fontano. I did receive 2 emails after the um, deadline for email comments, so it's up to you as the chair to let me know if you want me to read those into the record, and
Oh,
then we
yeah.
can call on
Yeah,
people.
definitely. Yeah. We'll just put it, like I said, we're just trying to get as much input and stuff that we can work on. So
Sure.
yes,
So you'd like me to start with
yes,
those?
yes, please.
All right. This first one is from Karen Malloy on Highland Ave. Hello, members of the ZBA. Apologies for this late comment to the 17 Hudson Street item on your agenda. I became aware of the agenda item yesterday. I have a couple questions about the 17 Hudson Street development, which is located in my general neighborhood, which I pass frequently as it's a block away from my home. Is the 1,400 square foot freestanding house on the property considered an ADU or backyard cottage? And if so, shouldn't it conform to the statutory limit of 900 square feet or less than half the square footage of the primary residence? Should the city allow the splitting of house lots in residential neighborhoods to multiply the number of housing units built without public notice? Although not pertinent to this case, this allowance could potentially be used as a get-around to avoid affordable housing requirements. Best regards, Karen.
What was her
That was
address? I didn't catch it.
197 Highland Ave.
Thank you.
The second one we've got from Margie Polster from 31 Albion Street. Okay. Dear Zoning Board of Appeals, I'm writing with concerns about building permits B25-000072 and B25-000077. It is my understanding, without notice to abutters, the developer was given permission to split the lot and to build not 2 but 3 dwelling units there. The third dwelling unit is being called an accessory cottage, but the plans don't conform to the definition of an accessory cottage. A cottage is supposed to be no more than 1.5 stories, and examples of appropriate use are as a small dwelling, office, or children's playhouse. The current plan is for a 2.5-story dwelling with 3 bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms. This far exceeds the definition and reasonable understanding of what an accessory cottage is meant to be. I believe this plan would also make the accessory building close to equal in size to the main building, whereas a cottage is supposed to be subordinate to the main building. I have 2 main objections to the approval of this plan. It violates the established definition of a cottage, which is a protection for neighbors against the negative impacts of overcrowding. And the footprint of the accessory cottage is to be 3 feet from the property line of an abutter, which would make it a potential safety risk and detract from the abutter's enjoyment of their property. It is disturbing that the plan has been allowed to go forward thus far without soliciting input from the neighbors, which suggests that the interests of developers have been favored over the interests of the residents. Very much appreciate that a hearing is now taking place. Hope a compromise can be reached and that will be fair to neighbors and that it will also set a precedent for respecting the original intention in allowing accessory cottages to be built.
Thank you.
Yep.
And now anybody from the public on board?
This is Kit. I'm going to share the timer, and Director Bartman will call on the members of the public, and everyone will be given 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Kit.
I don't have unmuting capability, Kit.
1 second, sorry. You should be all set now.
Madam Chair, I'm noticing that Denise Provost's hand is raised as well. I don't know if you would like to call on her first as the proponent.
Yes, go ahead. Denise Provo, I'm sorry, I didn't see a hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and everyone else. I'll be very brief here, but I wanted to respond to some of the testimony that I heard at the last hearing, because I found it troubling. You know, what what I fear is that the zoning ordinance that was intended by the city councilors is being enforced in a way that does not reflect it fairly. I think that that there's a very generous interpretation that goes beyond beyond its clear meaning. The backyard cottage in question here is just shy of 30 feet, 29 feet. And it certainly looks to all the world like a 3-story building. And in fact, it has 3 inhabited floors. And the definition in the glossary of the zoning ordinance counts stories from the floor of every habitable segment of the building. And yet, last week, the gentleman from ISD was telling us a magical formula that that discounts the bottom and the top of the building and cuts 1.5 stories out of the middle, like the filling in a sandwich. And I can't imagine that the city council knew about that magic formula when they adopted the 1.5 stories limit for the backyard cottage. If you look at the illustrations in the zoning ordinance, which of course are, what is the expression? They're examples only. But if you look at them all, they look like 1.5 story structures. And, as somebody who used to make decisions about zoning laws, I would have taken this literally. I would have thought 1.5 stories looks like these pictures of 1.5 story buildings. That's what I'm voting for. And I don't know where the magic formula came from, but it's being used for the front buildings on this site and elsewhere around the city, which have 4 inhabited floors, and yet they're being represented as 3-unit buildings. And they're not triple deckers that we know. They look like triple deckers on steroids. They don't have front yard setbacks. They're 3 feet from abutters, and it defies the look of the city. We're supposed to have form-based architecture, but these are not the forms that we have in the city. And, there was an assertion made by one of the planning staff last week that buildings and structures are different things. But again, in the glossary of the zoning ordinance, if you look at accessory structures and accessory buildings, those terms are used interchangeably. And I think it's not logical or intuitive to insist that they are different. And what I'll say about the lot split is a similar thing. It seems to be a fiction. And looking at, and I don't know what you have before you, so I'll hold this up. We've got this, right? This condominium development, which is on either side of a boundary. But the boundary is really meaningless here because it's all in the same ownership. It will probably stay in the same ownership. And it seems cynical that this line was drawn down the middle for the express purpose of multiplying the units on the lot, which are now 7 in a 6,000 square foot lot. Today there were 2 excavators working behind my house, one of them within a foot of my fence. I'm not exaggerating. I photographed it because, of course, there's a 3-foot setback, rear yard setback. So, this is a wall of buildings. I don't think that's what the city council intended or expected when they adopted this zoning ordinance. And I wonder whether the approval of this plan is a legitimate one that would hold up. And I leave you with those questions. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you. So, so that's the applicant. The applicant has spoken. Let's go to the public portion now. Mr. Bartman, you have any hands up there?
First up is Joe Lynch.
Mr. Lynch?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Joe Lynch. I live at 10 Henderson Street and a longtime friend of Ms. Provost. I'm here to speak on the 17 Hudson Street development. Madam Chair, I know it is not this board's duty to respond to questions, but I have some questions and I await your deliberation. Is the planning staff interpreting the zoning ordinance correctly? Is the City of Somerville ordinance contra to the state zoning law 40A? Is the city solicitor's office comfortable with the planning department's recommendation to you and its interpretation of the zoning ordinance? If the ordinance is being supported by planning and solicitor's office, I await the ZBA's deliberation and your decision regarding the appeal as to why it should be upheld or denied. Madam Chair, thank you very much for the time.
You're welcome, Mr. Lynch.
Next up is Melissa McWhinney.
Yes. Hello, my name is Melissa McWhinney. I live at 16 Dixon Street. I learned about this meeting tonight at 6 o'clock, so I have not had an opportunity to review all of the zoning questions before the board. However, I echo the questions raised by Bill White, by Denise Provo, and by Joe Lynch. I would like to see those answered. Further, I was in the house that existed there before it was destroyed, and what has been built now has been built. And I will say, I don't believe that the city councilor and city councilors and the intended to have huge places running up to the edges of properties, replacing what were gracious homes and a lot of green space. Moreover, the chair mentioned that you can't have add additional layers to a cake. I would suggest that this cake of consideration is incomplete because there has not been consideration given to the effect of these buildings on the property and the vegetation, the greenery owned by Denise Provo, which is going to be seriously damaged by the height of this. It will not get the necessary sun that it needs to thrive. That should be part of your consideration. I don't understand why you would not include that in your consideration as a matter of serious concern, especially in this time of climate change, and simply as it affects the property of Ms. Provost. So thank you for your consideration and your time. I look forward to hearing the answers to the questions raised, and I will give back my last 9 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Beth Grunko.
Hello.
Hello, this is Beth Grunko. I live on Berkeley Street, and across the street from me is another one of these situations where a 2-family house was made into a 3-family house, and they put a very, very large cottage in the backyard, and the backyard was not a large backyard. They say they're going to have space for 4 cars to park there, but nobody is going to be able to, the first car in is not going to be able to get out unless everybody moves their car. It is blocking the light from our neighbors across the street. And I feel like environmentally, it is a nightmare for Somerville. We need our most precious thing besides its people are the open land that we have. We have very little, and everybody is just gobbling it up for the houses. And I'm very, very concerned about the future of the city and being able to maintain itself as the environmental issues become more severe. So thank you very much for letting me have my say.
Thank you, Ms. Greco.
Next up is Jane Bester.
Thank you. Jane Bestor at 45 Ibbotson Street, apartment number 3. I must say, I was incensed by some of what I heard at the last hearing in February. It turns out that the amount of square footage is dependent on is open to vast increase through a manipulation of the ceiling height of the basement. So there is no transparency here. Any developer can come in and decide to lower the height of the ceiling by 4 inches and thereby make a travesty of the 1.5 floor requirement set in the zoning code. And that has huge ramifications for affordable housing. Now, I have, because as Attorney White has already pointed out, the kind of the likelihood that rental properties will be built in accessory cottage dwellings is much higher than if condominiums are allowed. And I would like to point out that the developer's lawyer announced that there were 36 of these cottages, so-called cottages, going up in Somerville right now. In the last year, including up to middle of this year, there are only 46 affordable units being constructed in Somerville. And I understand, I don't know whether it's correct, that the affordable housing requirement has been eliminated from residential zones in the city. Thank you very much. And of course, I agree with everything that's been said about concerns about the lot division. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bestor, Bestor, Bestor. Thank you.
I don't have any other new hands.
Okay. At this time, I would hope that.
Couple coming now.
Okay. What I was going to say before we put the next person on, you folks listening in that are here to support us from the city, I hope you're making some notes, because at the end of this jam session, so to speak, I'd like to see if you can answer any of these questions. We're not going to go back and forth with the caller, but I'd like you to answer some of these questions to the board for us to understand even better with you here tonight. So, Mr. Botman, who's next?
Victoria Antonino.
Hi, my name is Victoria Antonino, also Tori Antonino. I think in that this permit had not been given the proper site plan review that was discretionary, but that should have had. And my concern about these lot splittings, and this one in particular, and the fact that there's an ADA unit that is not going to comply with, I guess, the intention of having accessory dwelling units, that they relate to the main building, and that they hopefully would be providing more affordable units. And so with this splitting, we have it's bypassing our inclusionary zoning by having four, or not having the 5 unit trigger. And what it's also doing is, I believe, sort of going in the face of our summer vision with our sustainability, affordable housing, and our need for green space and stormwater management. Um, our naturally occurring green spaces happen on private property. The majority of our trees are in private property. With with this lot splitting, we're removing natural affordable housing and natural occurring green space. And what we're losing, in addition to, trees, we're losing our hawks, we're losing our foxes, we're losing our built-in rodent mitigation, which is our animals. And this is important because I want to live in a city with not just the people, but the creatures who make our daily living enjoyable. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else that hasn't spoken yet? I have Michelle Anders. Their hand went down.
Beth Grunko's hand is still up. I don't know if that's from before. Okay, thank you.
Michelle Anders, go ahead.
Michelle?
Hi, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you. Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm at 19 Waldo Street. So I can look out my window right now and see the development right out my window. I could throw a rock there if I wanted to. And I didn't prepare a statement. I want to say that the reason for that was because what's been happening with this development has been so depressing to me and many of my neighbors that emotionally it was so stressful. I had to stop being involved in the neighborhood emails and the groups because the way that the developers have been proceeding in this neighborhood, North American Development, this developer, and other neighborhoods is just utterly depressing to me. And that the city, I don't understand why the city lets this go on and on and on. I was here when the mayor, the original resident was there. I watched her. She was my neighbor for years. She passed away. The house was sold to a nice family. They were going to develop the property. They could not get, the city was making it astronomically difficult for them. So then, of course, like the cliche always says, it goes to the highest bidder and a developer who's going to cram the most property on there to make the most money for them. I just don't understand how people that sit on the council of the city let this happen over and over again in Somerville. It's not about affordable housing. It's about greed. We all know it. Watching them tear up the vegetation here, disrespect our street, idle in front of our houses for hours with their trucks. I just can't even say. It's just so depressing to me. I had to actually opt out of this communications, but I wanted to come here tonight and support Denise and support everybody who is speaking up about what's going on in Somerville. If it happened next door to you, I know you wouldn't be happy with it either. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next up is Michelle Hanson.
Hello, my name is.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. I live at 26 Warren Ave in Somerville. I just really am concerned. It's just come to my attention about the lot splitting, and it does really worry me with concerns towards affordable housing. And this is sort of getting around a lot of
Michelle, we
that.
lost
And
your
also, when you
audio.
look at it, just can you hear me?
Now we can. We lost you
Okay,
for a
sorry,
little
sorry.
bit.
Okay, so I was just going to say, where did you lose me at? I was just going to say that I just think this is obviously just is to me a way of getting around doing affordable units. And it's also just seems to be way too much on a lot. Just like the first time I saw the images, I was like, wow, that's a whole lot on a lot. And also the fact is that I know we have YIMBYs, yes, in my backyard, and we have NIMBYs here, no, in my backyard. But what I would like to see is like the maintaining of some sort of yard at all. I think I agree very much with Tori Antonino and other people who have spoken about the necessity for a green space, and every bit counts in our city. And I happen to live on an area where I should probably not say where it is because some developer will try and come and get it, but 4 backyards back onto each other. And it actually is a very large piece of green space, so every bit counts. And I worry that we're just letting developers eat up every single inch. And just because I grew up in the city and I love living in a city doesn't mean I don't love green space. And for my nieces and potentially someday my grandchildren to be able to go in the backyard and pitch a tent or something. And it doesn't need to be a lot of space, but some space is good. So again, I agree with everybody what they're talking about here. This is very worrisome, and for it to be going on continually, and it just doesn't seem in the spirit of what was intended. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out.
Next up is Sonia Page Sobecki.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sonia. I'm the resident and homeowner at 7 Hudson Street. So I'm three houses down from 17 Hudson. I echo literally all the comments that have been made to this point in the public comments section. I want to make one point. I've been living in Somerville for 5 years as a homeowner. And the thing that's been really challenging for me about all this is I'm very grateful that Denise is going through this process, because there's literally no other way that I would be able to get information on how this process is running with this developer. It feels like, where I'm like trying to follow like the drawings and what's going to get built. And then like all of a sudden they're like breaking ground and I have no idea what's even going to be built on the lot. And it's really hard to get transparency and information about these things. And it's really hard to actually understand what the accountability structures look like. And so as a newer resident of Somerville who loves the city, loves this neighborhood, I'd really like to see the city kind of help us navigate that more easily, because it's been really distressing to me that it's hard to get information, and it seems like some of the murkiness of the accountability systems is making things distressing and hard, and makes a lot of the gray area easy for developers to take advantage of. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is Beth Rosenberg.
Hi. I live at 15 Waldo Street. I too have the joy of looking at this monstrosity going up at the end of the street. And I wish to say that this is not in keeping with the spirit of Somerville and our emphasis on green space and sustainability and affordable housing. This is represents none of it. And further, I just wonder, do we have sun rights in this town? And if not, maybe we should establish those, because many people's sun rights are being violated by this project. And I just wanted to raise that idea. But I join my colleagues, and especially I'm grateful to the board for having this hearing, grateful to Denise and Bill White. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next is Meredith Porter.
Hi, Meredith Porter, 104 Josephine Ave. A few things. I just wanted to chime in and agree with Sonia on transparency. We need a lot more of that in the city. Jake Wilson promised that, and I hope that that comes to be, because even to learn about the plans for a building that's been approved is a real task. There's no easy way for people to find out except going to ISD and obtaining plans still. So we gotta fix that, and the whole process around lot splits. I have huge problems with. This is being taken advantage of all over the place. The lack of notice to even abutters. I know that it's in the zoning ordinance, but it's totally unacceptable, and I believe that there may be an issue with state law, as I believe Attorney White has suggested, with that lack of notice or transparency around that. Also, backyard cottages. I know that the original intent of these was to be something like a granny flat or whatever, supposed to be associated with a principal structure. And they are called an accessory building type in the ordinance. And, there are accessory structures which do have to have the same ownership as the principal building. And I think it's a very murky area and one that's really, it's not right. That's about all I can say for it. And yes, we need a lot more green space in the city, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Anyone else that has not spoken yet? Last call for any public comments? No additional hands, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I do see, is it Ann Vigorito?
Yes, Madam Chair. Just to be very brief, I don't want to mess with the timing of how you want to.
Ann, could I ask you to please identify yourself and your purpose
Oh,
here?
apologies, Madam Clerk. Madam Chairwoman, excuse me. Attorney Ann Vigorito, 424 Broadway, Somerville. I am the attorney for the developer, Northeast Development. Jason Santana is here this evening. And we also have part of our team, Evan Stellman from Kalsa Design. He is the architect. Very, very briefly, I listened to Attorney White's commentary, and he states it's basically a difference of opinion. The building permit was issued to my client based on zoning and building code requirements. It wasn't an opinion of the building department. They based it on building code and the zoning requirements. I don't want to beat or belabor this matter. Director Bartman at the last meeting was very clear, very detailed in everything he, stated about why my client, received that permit. And I know you addressed to city staff that there were questions raised by many of the public comments, and not to take that from city staff, but Mr. Salmon, our architect, is also very well versed in the code. And, if there's something, you would want him to address, he's ready, willing, and able. But, I take that to you, Madam Chair, to make that as your decision, to hear from staff or from Mr. Stallman. That's all I have. I think we've all said enough.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I think as we go forward, I'm going to close the public portion now. We've got all names and addresses, their comments are written down. Is there anybody here from either the developer, their architect, or whomever, or is there anybody here from the city that would like to speak to us, any answers to some of these questions that have come up? To questions not to blame. And sometimes we don't understand, the ramifications of how you came to some of these conclusions. So if any of you folks out there have a comment, would you please raise your hand and let us know, come on board so we can see you? Because some of these questions really need to be answered. Well, I'm going to go with our board, then I'm going to start with our board. You've had a
Madam
lot.
Chair, Dan Bartman has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, there you are. Hi, Dan.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to try to recall some of those questions that came across during the public testimony. I think one of the things to remind everybody about is that this is not a hearing about whether or not the project should get a permit. It's an appeal of a decision of the building official to issue building permits. So it's an appeal case. It's we're not here issuing a site plan approval, for example. So I wanted to just clarify that for some in the audience questioning what this specific process was. I'm noticing one of the ZBA members has their hand up. I don't know if he wants to interject.
Zach Zaremba, did you have a comment? Your hand's up.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to piggyback off of Dan's what I was going to say later, but I think what I'm struggling with a little bit with this case is that we're being asked to consider a lot of things that aren't really relevant to the actual decision we have to make.
Right.
Um, and I appreciate a lot of what people shared tonight about their concerns about the process that this went through and the lack of green space, and I share those concerns, but I'm viewing this as if we need to determine if ISD made a mistake in terms of how they interpreted the lot split, whether the stories and the way they were counted was correct. And looking through the ordinance, looking through the staff memo as well as the response from Attorney White, I just feel that it's hard we can't really step outside of these boundaries of what we're supposed to interpret tonight. And I think the ZBA is being asked to do more than it should. And it's not our responsibility to really figure out whether the intention of the ordinance and the Affordable Homes Act with the ADUs being by right is fair or not. So that was my thought about this, and I'm curious to hear what the board has to say about that, and tuning out some of the noise that we heard.
Thank you, Zach. Dan?
Sure. I also wanted to acknowledge some of the comments about transparency. And one aspect of that is that a lot of the city is in by right zoning districts where the prior zoning ordinance almost regulated all development across the entirety of the city through discretionary permitting. Now with by right development, there isn't public hearings and stuff that's going on because people are building what the code is saying should be built on those lots. And we have been asked by some city councilors to see if we can identify a way for allowing or informing members of the public about by right development that would be happening within their neighborhoods. Because as Sonia had brought up, sometimes it is a surprise, like what all of a sudden a building's going up and you didn't find out about it, and it's startling. And we are cognizant of that, and the mayor's office has talked to us about looking into that. Similarly, related to construction management, we're certainly sensitive to the pains that can be caused when a new building is being built very close to existing ones. And we're currently trying to work with ISD and the engineering department to figure out aspects of that. Also, we've just recently, for example, SEC partnered with a firm that actually builds prefab housing, and they were able to truck it in and actually cause very little disturbance to the neighborhood over in East Somerville. So we're looking for new construction methods that might be applicable for our tight-knit community. And so the city is paying attention to things like that and working towards building solutions. So I did want to at least address those. And then there was a question about the degree to which my department and the city attorney's office and ISD are in collaboration and on the same page. And I would say that we meet regularly, nearly every day, on the work that we do. And we've certainly collaborated on all of the staff memos and everything that's been submitted to your board for the case tonight. If any of them would like to speak related to how they feel about the situation, I'm certainly don't intend to speak for ISD or the city attorney's office, but wanted to share at least my opinion about the degree to which we all collaborate on the city side.
Great. Thank you for that input. Thank you, Zach, for trying to make us understand that we got a little waylaid, but what's in front of us is just what you said, whether inspectional services did the right thing at the time. Josh Mannion, Inspectional Services, do you have anything you'd like to say, to the public?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would just like to add that I am like a resident here and a renter up the street, and coming here from the city of Watertown, where I was working in the zoning office. I would say that my initial read of the zoning ordinance here, as it had been adopted by the council in 2019, was that it was quite permissive in relation to neighboring communities and certainly what we had on the books in Watertown. So, just as a starting point, it took me a little bit of time to wrap my head around the idea that a half story could be, as tall as these by right buildings are making them. But the code is quite clear about the dimensional requirements and what it considers to be a half story. And I would stand by the assessments made in the staff report that while the backyard cottage as an accessory building certainly does not, meet certain people's expectations of what these accessory buildings should be looking like, the code provides a very specific framework for what it considers to be a small and accessory building. And while these buildings are being built within like inches of the tolerances established in the code, they are within the tolerances of the code. And my opinion is that is frankly a policy matter above staff's head. And just to speak to, some insinuations that are kind of being made about ISD's level of involvement with developers, myself and my staff agonize over these reviews. We spend a lot of time going back and forth with the architects and with the contractors, needling them for information and having them revise plans. And in fact, from the other side of this coin, we are getting a lot of pressure to figure out ways to speed up the permitting process. This permit in particular, I believe, took months to get from initial review to a permit issuance. And that had nothing to do with anyone's appeal. That was us going back and forth with the architect, which I'm sure Mr. Stillman can corroborate, because I sent him a number of messages, which are outlined in the staff report, asking for additional information, asking for revisions, and trying to hold them to a consistent standard that is outlined in the code. So our staff, we try to be as agnostic as possible, and with regard to whether we think these are good regulations or not, but they are the regulations on the books that we are required to enforce. And we don't have discretionary authority to deny someone a permit based on a feeling that the building is too big when the code is providing a framework for that building to be by right. So I think that's, maybe all I have to say. I know there's been some questions about the differentiation between accessory buildings and accessory structures. I would just like to make note that in section 2.3.1A of the ordinance, it does divide principal buildings, accessory buildings, and accessory structures into three different categories. And then, later on in the ordinance, it provides, specific, dimensional guidelines and regulations around how those buildings are to be built and what their uses are. The accessory structures are generally outbuildings, garages, things that you wouldn't consider to be a habitable space or to be used for a dwelling unit. The accessory building, as the backyard cottage was intended to be a dwelling unit, it could be used for other purposes with habitable space inside. But the differentiation is also, I think, quite clear in the code, and I would point the public to the staff report, which is available online, because we are able to get into the details of those differentiations. I'm not sure if there's any additional questions that you'd like me to answer. I'd be happy to. There was quite a lot of commentary provided, so I know the accessory structures and buildings piece was a big question, but yeah, I think I cede back my time.
All right, thank you. Thanks so much. And let's see, anybody else? If not, nobody else's hand is up, so I'm gonna ask the board. You had time to read all your reports. We've had time from last meeting to today to listen in to the folks calling in, and then you listen to what have Dan has to say, Dan Bartman, and Zach chimed in with his comments. Cece Danglian.
Have we had discussion about whether, or adequate discussion about whether we think the ZBA's delegation of minor site plan approval just to make an administrative process was done correctly or is appropriate. It's sort of a larger, larger question here as well about the process. I don't know if someone from the city wants to address that.
Folks, who'd like to answer that, please, for us? Dan Bartman?
I would just reiterate in the staff memo, I believe, has these details, but the administrative chapter of the zoning ordinance allows your board to adopt a process to determine a number of things that in your decision making don't need the full review process. That could be one step less. It could be all of the steps less, except for having to review the plans. That actually happens all the time by ISD for every permit, regardless if they're by right or by site plan approval or by special permit, or if you make the decision or if I end up making the decision because it was delegated. The process is done through your adoption of your rules of policy and procedure, and those are handled through a majority vote, done and conducted through regular business of your board. It doesn't require a public hearing or anything like that for you to adopt your rules. So that was originally done, I believe. I'm triggering hands to go up, so I don't want to keep going if they're.
No, you can keep going. What? Okay, all right. I think we did that. I had that down with my 1 second. I'm gonna let somebody speak and I'll tell you when we did that. I don't know who wants to go first. We've got Brian or Olivia. Brian, you can go first, Olivia says.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair and Olivia. I just wanted to add in answer to Member Daglian's question that I'm relatively new on the board, but every year that I've been on the board, we've had discussion of and vote on the policies and procedures document. One of the years we did have a discussion about delegating to the Director of Planning, Preservation and Zoning minor site plan approval for lot splits because it came up in an additional case. And I believe it was, since I've been on the board, that discussion resulted in the board being comfortable with continuing delegating minor site plan approval to the Director of Planning, Preservation and Zoning. But it's certainly within the purview of any member of the board to raise a question about those policies and procedures and perhaps to review them for a change if we are no longer comfortable with delegating minor site plan approval in that way.
Thank you, Brian. Does that help, Cecilia? Thank you. Good. Olivia, you have a comment?
Yes, Madam Chair, I do. Thank you. I agree with what everyone is saying here. I am curious if there are ever cases and this is me coming in as the newest member of the board, if there are any cases of minor site approval that would actually require substantive conversation and discussion. Based on our conversation in the first component of this hearing, it made it pretty clear that the lot split was by right. There was really nothing the city or the board could do. And the way I understand it, a site plan cannot be required for a lot split because someone can split a lot and then not do anything for years on it, right? So requiring a site plan review for all lot splits would not be something we could do anyway. So I'm just curious, from Dan or anyone on the board, if there are cases where, receiving public comment and, gathering information from board members actually has the opportunity to sway any of these decisions, or if they're truly just checking a box.
Dan?
Items have ended up on the list for either your board or the planning board based off of past experience, really. Um, uh, we've encountered changes to storefronts that ended up being minor in nature, but were triggering full site plan approval. We're actually currently in discussions because a project added a small sunroom to the back of a building that was absolutely compliant, but it technically triggered site plan approval. So there's all these little things that end up triggering the larger requirement for the full review, which if I remind everybody, site plan approval typically requires multiple neighborhood meetings, design review if there's a building involved, not if there's just a lot split or a land platting otherwise. So the procedural process can be long or short depending on what the nature is of the development. But if it triggers site plan approval at all, you have to go through the full process. And sometimes that is onerous. Instead of parsing out what all of those were or might have been in 2019, we used that power to authorize your board and the planning board to delegate that authority for minor site plan approval because the planning board already had that on the books in the prior zoning ordinance and was already using it for a number of these things and had learned through experience some of them that were included on the list. So when we actually passed the new ordinance and had your board be the permit granting authority for the NR zoning district and the UR zoning district, if you recall from the last meeting, the prior zoning ordinance had you guys organized by permit type. And we added you to this district, but realized site plan approval for lot splits was previously always done by the planning board. And now your board was also going to do it. So then we showed up to one of your meetings soon after adoption of the new zoning ordinance and identified that that was not the case. That was not on the books for you. And so we proposed adopting the same standards that the planning board already had because they were the only board dealing with minor site plan approvals and lot mergers, lot line adjustments, lot land splitting, subdivisions previously. So now that we had two boards, we mirrored how that prior board had been operating. So that's how your list came into existence, and things have been added and changed on it differently than the planning board necessarily has managed their list because you both are independent boards moving forward since that original adoption.
Okay, thank you. I hope that helps in the questions there. Who else has a comment on the board? Anybody? Ian Brockelman?
Thank you, Zach Zaremba, for trying to put the guide rails on our discussion, what's within our purview. But I do. There are a lot of participants here, so I want to make sure the community feels heard. I think everything that's raised is very important. It's clear, that the shape of the city, what summer vision means to each of us is very important. And it's great to see so much passion and enthusiasm. So I think I'd like to address a few, or at least ask Dan Bartman a few more things before we go to the numbers 1, 2, 3, the claims, which are the basis of the administrative appeal, if that's okay with you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Thank you, ISD and Dan Bartman, for addressing a few of those issues. The closest we can be from a lot line is 3 feet, right? So that is going to be disruptive in any circumstance. That's the max, right? So you just can't, get a backhoe in and dig 3 feet, a basement 3 feet. So it's going to be painful for the neighbor and unpleasant. So that makes me wonder if, again, this is outside of the board, but ISD or the city, there could be more guidelines as to if you're getting that close to the abutter or the lot line, you know, you need to give notice or more construction best practice guidelines, being a good neighbor, that sort of thing. Does ISD want to respond to that, or Dan Bartman? Josh, yes, I was looking for your name. Thank you. Sorry for calling you ISD.
No
Josh
problem.
Matthews Mannion, thank you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to respond to that. So, building permits are always accompanied by a approved construction management plan that is reviewed by the building inspectors and the administrative staff. And so while that's a little outside of my purview, I know that, you know, the developer is, you know, meant to be beholden to the, you know, practices and, you know, the best construction practices and safeguards that are articulated in those construction management plans. When those, you know, practices go beyond what's permitted in the, for a colloquialism, is called a CMP. When the practices goes beyond what's, you know, permitted in the CMP, we encourage members of the community to file 311 requests or call ISD and the building inspector. I mean, you can look at the record of violation notices and tickets issued. And I, our building inspectional team responds to those violations and, you know, issues orders to correct the actions. The engineering team also reviews any sort of permit that needs street occupancy. They have to get a street occupancy permit and are meant to be following, you know, construction practices as established within those guidelines. And they also, you know, follow up on complaints as they come up. So again, but those things are a little bit outside of my purview, but you know, ISD with the resources and staff it has at its disposal does the best we can. But, you know, I remind everyone here and in the public that we have only so many building inspectors right now. I think we have 7, one complaints inspector, and there are 3 of us doing zoning plan review for the entire city at the neighborhood residence level, the high rise level, the mid rise districts. So, you know, to say we're stretched thin is, you know, we're stretched thin, but we do follow up on complaints as they come in, and the building inspectors conduct regular inspections for site safety and construction practice and adherence with the approved plans. I myself, in the past 2 years, or past year or so, as the senior zoning review planner, instituted practice of rough inspections for all of these projects where we previously were not doing that, to get out at the midpoint of the project and ensure that the plans that were approved are actually being, you know, or that the building is being constructed in accordance with the approved plans. Doing that has caught a number of, you know, violations and issues that would have shown up as variances before this board, and the contractors have, you know, had to remove work and rebuild it to match the approved plans and the zoning ordinance. So within our capabilities, we are doing, in my opinion, the best that we can on that front.
Sandra, through the chair, I mean, I guess a lot of what we are discussing conceptually goes back to a matter of policy, right? What do we want to, how can we do better? Who are we as a community? So I'm hoping the 3 feet, if you're 3 feet right from the lot line, again, as I say, you almost can't you can't pour a basement 3 feet from the lot line without almost stepping onto a butter's property. That's surgical. So what I'm hearing is more the onus is on residents to call 311, which isn't great. So let's, I guess, set that aside, but I wanted to make sure that was acknowledged, that that's, again, a policy issue. How can we do better? May I keep going? I have a few points, Madam Chair.
Yes, keep going, but I just want to make one comment on what you just said, and it's true. You can call 311, or you can call a department head, or you can call anybody. If you, a butter, are in the neighborhood, down the street, whatever, and you want to ensure the type of neighborhood you've been living in, and you don't get a call back, why aren't you calling again and again and again? I've done it. I've done it with other things in my life, you know, doctor's appointments, the bank, and all kinds of inspection stickers or whatever it could be, the car, the mechanic, the painter. So we have to share this burden together. We as residents that really care about our city and take pride in it and want the right thing done, we've got to get on it, even though, like Mr. Mannion said, now this one halfway through this rough inspection, I love that. I've sat on this board a long time, and we hear so many things when it's all done. It's all done, and they come up to us. What are we supposed to tell them? Tear down, a $500,000 house? That's why I think that's fabulous, and I hope you really, really continue to do that, because we had to get tough a couple of times this past year, and it breaks your heart. But hey, right's right, and it's not fair to the butter or the neighbor. So thank you very much for that. Ian, go ahead, please.
Yes, the next issue, maybe it's for my own education. It's been brought up, rental versus condo. So zoning regulates massing, right? The city fabric, scale, and use type, which is residential or commercial or industrial. Mr. Bartman, is there any policy? What is the policy that addresses rental versus condo? Is there such a thing?
Through the chair, we do not regulate the type of tenure for occupancy of a dwelling unit, which is rental versus ownership. That's not regulated in zoning.
So the goal of some revision is to increase housing stock, build more housing, and then we do have metrics or have guidelines for when it's affordable, but whether it's rental versus condo is not, I mean, that's come up a lot, and I do hear that residents feel deceived when it's changed or advertised differently. I just wanted to be clear on the policy and what tools we have to influence that. Thank you. Next point, maybe this is for the architect. What is the required green score of this development, and how did you do? This is to address the issue of loss of green space, which I know we all support, but that seems to be coming up against the max dimensional buildable area. Is the architect there? So the way we regulate that is by the green score for each development.
Evan?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For the record, my name is Evan Snellman with Calsa Design, a business address of 17 Ivaloo Street in Somerville. So for both of these lots at 17 Hudson, just for the sake of clarity, I know your understanding of how the green score works, but for members of the public, the green score is not just a number based on the lot percentage. There's a lot of elements that go into calculating that green score, like trees are make up a certain percentage of that score. Each tree is worth a certain square footage. So essentially, when we have lots that don't have a ton of permeable lawn space, in order to achieve that 0.35 or 35% green score, we make up for the lower open space with more planting. So that's how we achieve the green score here. And Josh, feel free to add anything
So
if
where
you think
did
I'm
you
not being
land?
clear enough.
Ian, repeat, please.
And so what in this project, what is required, and how did you just meet it or exceed it?
So this project, I can share my screen if that's easier.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is for the lot that has the backyard cottage. The required green score is 0.35. We're at 0.368, so we're a little bit over it. And it's met through, there's plantings at the front, there's a few trees towards the rear of the property, and some plantings in between the two buildings.
And all the hardscape is pervious pavers?
Yes.
Okay. Again, why don't I, Josh Mannion has his hand raised.
Josh,
Yes.
while we're looking at this, what do you have to say?
Yes, through the chair. Well, so actually, Evan's plan here, it kind of demonstrates, the how the project achieved a compliant green score. In general, based the how it works is each element of the site has a point value based on the square footage and then other certain characteristics about either the plantings or the depth of soil below the plantings or the pervious area through the pervious pavers. So oftentimes when you see sites that have achieved a green score, but are you see a lot of hardscape, they're getting a lot of points through the pervious paving. So you can see in this chart that 17% of the score is accounted for through the pervious paving with a depth of 6 to 24 inches. For the green score reviews on the city side, while they are zoning requirements, we outsource the review to the public space and urban forestry planners because they have more expertise, obviously, with reviewing plantings and landscaping plans. And I trust their assessment of these plans. And I also can say that there's a lot of back and forth that happens with projects such as this, where the PSUF planners are, requesting additional information, looking for the planting sections, asking for different plantings to be installed. But I can also tell you that it is a shared assessment from ISD staff and planning staff that probably when these scores were first conceived, there's too many points going to pervious paving. So as staff in general, we have, raised this issue a number of times internally and feel that, the green score could and should be recalculated to assign more value and weight to actual plantings as opposed to just pervious area. But the pervious paving ends up being the way a lot of developments achieve both a compliant lot coverage percentage. So only 60% of the lot is meant to be, or only 60% of the lot can be impervious. So, the pervious paver systems kind of do a lot of lifting for developers to achieve both compliant lot coverage and green score. And due to maintenance issues, our staff's feeling is that, those paver systems are not going to be, as pervious, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road. So that is something that, staff is looking at internally. But, what's on the books is what's on the books right now.
And
Thank you.
Ian, excuse me, who did you say you collaborate with? What organization?
So it's a division within the Office of Strategic Planning and Development, our PSUF planners, public space and urban forestry. So all the folks over there, they kind of rotate. We assign anytime a project triggers the green score requirement.
Yeah.
Create a review route for one of their planners on the building permit, and they engage with the architect and the project team to review the landscaping plan, review the green score, and ensure that everything is actually compliant. And then when we conduct our site inspections, obviously not at the rough stage, but at the final stage, we are looking at that approved plan and documenting changes. And if we have any sort of reservations or concerns, we're going to coordinate with him to ensure that, the plans are either revised or, the plan is implemented as approved. And if that means switching out plantings or reclaiming paved area as landscaping, that's
beautiful. Thank you. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to get that down because I thought that was important. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very useful, and seeing this is useful too. I wonder, Mr. Bardman, are we as a city reevaluating this metric again? We do see, why is the whole backyard paved over? I've seen those, and then I walk over there, and then they're pervious pavers. They're still feel harsh, but the metric, it complies, right? And you can see those zeros. So it's not like a lead certification spreadsheet where there are requirements, right? You can pick your a la carte menu how to get to the green score. So just for the public, are we as a city reevaluating the effectiveness, or seeing the projects where they've landed. And thank you, Mr. Mannion, for your critique of this tool.
Through the chair, yeah, the answer is yes. That is currently part of one of the items that is included in our 5-year zoning review project. I would refer everybody to Summer Voice if you haven't seen that project yet. But yeah, we're just about the 5-year anniversary of the adoption of the zoning ordinance. So it's a perfect opportunity to take a look at all of the standards and see whether or not they're producing the results that we thought they were. Although there has been subsequent amendments made to the code that have changed the trajectory of where it was when it was in 2019. But the green score is definitely one of the ones that we're taking a close look at. We are one of 3 cities in the entire country that has that system. So it's expected to be refined through calibration. And each one of the systems in each 3 cities are different from one another because they're calibrated towards their climate and ecosystem and stuff like that, and goals for what you'd like to have produced through development. You'll notice that the other 68% of that score was coming from the large trees that were being planted. That is absolutely a goal of the green score current calibration, is to get people to plant more trees. The tree canopy is exponentially beneficial for all of us. And getting those trees to vault up over the houses is really important. But not necessarily at the expense of other vegetation, because permeable pavers are earning the remainder of the points necessary to achieve the score. So we're certainly looking into that and working closely with the landscape architects that work at PSUF to calibrate that.
Okay, thank you. I guess my other discussion falls within the 3 points. I'm happy to move through that, or I can cede the floor to other members and come back.
No, well, yeah, just wait on that. Just the 3 points of,
According to the staff report, right? Number
Yeah.
1, lot split. Number 2, affordable housing benefits. Number 3, backyard cottage definition. We could go through those again.
okay. Yeah, unless somebody else has a hand up right now. Brian, you okay? You're okay. I am. Olivia, you okay? Please, Ian, you got the floor, girl. Keep going.
Thank you. So did I hear correctly, Attorney White, you said you were withdrawing number 2? Approval process deprives the city of affordable housing benefits? It was hard to hear.
Yes, I am. I've withdrawn that because I have looked at the zoning code, and as a result of the fact that the affordable housing requirement was removed from the neighborhood resident district, even though you press the button on the computer at the website, the city's zoning ordinance, that's not sufficient for me to raise that argument in good faith. So as a result, I've withdrawn that.
Okay, so then there's 1 or 2.
That's one less.
Thank you. So number 1, number 3, could we address the backyard cottage issue first?
Absolutely. Number 3, yeah.
At first, I was reluctant to go back because I feel like member Ann Fulton and I asked many clarifying questions of the architect in a quite detailed manner. If the public would like to listen to the recording of the last previous session, we were also trying to make sure that it was not built beyond the regulated dimensions of what's in the ordinance. The applicant is not asking for an extra inch at all. ISD was here to explain that, but I still have one last question, and maybe it was asked and I've forgotten. So maybe this is for the architect. Looking at 3.1.12 backyard cottage, again, the dimensions, we had discussed my interpretation versus, we had corrected some of my erroneous assumptions. But again, just humor me. Maximum width is 24 feet. Maximum depth is 32 feet. the floor plate max is 576. But if I multiply 24 by 32, I get 768. Is that on purpose where the floor plate is smaller because we don't want builders to max out both sides?
Well, an additional metric in the backyard cottage zoning parameters is that the floor plate is limited to 576 square feet. It's just if you do a longer building, it can't be as wide. So
That's
the
my
floor plate,
question. So
go
you
ahead.
can't actually build a footprint of 24 by 32.
No, no.
Okay, okay. It was just in one direction you can go this far, the other direction. Okay. So it's a bit more restrictive than just building the two max dimensions.
hmm
So I think we've gone over that enough. Contrary to what we're hearing about being gray or murky or not clear, the dimensions are the dimensions and they comply. So did the new ordinance overcorrect? That's a different policy, mayoral level discussion, because I've been on this zoning board almost 10 years, and we used to have cases all the time where we were, giving 4 to 6 inches. And now they've made it easier to build. So that's a policy question. Did we overcorrect and things are too big now, at the expense of the other part of the equation is the green score, right? So, what are those relationships? I'm very interested in those discussions, but for today, it is black and white that all the dimensions comply. And I feel like Ann Fullerton and I grilled Mr. Stellman last week, and we were sure we would find something that didn't comply, and we didn't. So I feel like we did our due diligence on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ann. Okay. So let me ask you this, the board. Are you folks ready to vote tonight? Do you have all the information you feel you need? And do you have any questions that you want to ask? Ask any question you think. I mean, don't feel awkward. And I think we said at the beginning that Cecia is gonna vote. Brian is the clerk, and everybody else, it's all hands, okay? But we had to figure out, yes, Brian, did I get that right?
Yes, Madam Chair, but for the public, just to make it clear, since I'm not going to be a voting member on either of the two appeals,
Right,
I will state the motion, but a voting member must move the motion,
right.
and there must then be a second.
Yes, I think we have that that's set up. Now, so here's the question. Are you guys ready to vote tonight? Or do you have questions that were not answered? Ready to vote? Is that what that is? I see Olivia is. Cece, are you ready to vote tonight? Zach? Ann? Okay, and I am. Okay. So, I think I closed the public portion of the meeting. We got the late emails in for comment. Is there anybody here tonight from any department that came out that would like to give us a closing opinion? Or if you're happy with everything, we're going to go forward. All right, seeing no hands, we're going to go forward tonight with the vote. Would the clerk, let me get my papers in front of me here. Would the clerk please make a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. In the matter of 17 Hudson Street, ZP 25000094, I move to approve the administrative appeal of the building official's issuance of building permits B 25-000078, B 25-000079, and B 25 000081. And just to clarify, I'm following protocol, which is we always state the motion as to approve.
Thank you. May I have somebody?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Zaremba. And Ann Brockelman, you seconded that?
Second.
That's what I thought. Okay.
So sorry, just want to make sure procedurally, we're denying their request to appeal. Yes, we're upholding it. Can you just rephrase that again?
Okay, so the motion is to approve the
Correct.
appeal. So if you don't want to approve the appeal, that is, you want to deny the appeal, then you vote no.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Everybody all clear with that? All right. So I'm going to start with Olivia Mobay,
No.
Cecia Daglian,
I vote no.
Ann Brockelman,
No.
Susan, no, and Zach,
No.
no. Let the record show the board voted, all present members voted in the no. So the appeal, the approval, how do I say this? Go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
The appeal is denied.
The appeal is denied. Thank you.
So we have a second appeal. Do you want to proceed with the motion?
Yes, sir.
All right. In the matter of 17 Hudson Street, ZP 26-000009, I move to approve the administrative appeal of the building official's issuance of building permits B25-000072 and B25-000077.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, folks. Here we go. Olivia,
No.
Cecia,
No.
Zach,
No.
Ann Brockelman,
No.
and Susan Fontano, no. Brian, make the announcement, please.
The appeal is denied.
Thank you. Okay, where's Mr. White and Miss Denise? Sorry if we disappointed you, but I want you to know it was a great experience. You folks were very professional, and I hope you found us as well. And we'll see what the future brings.
Madam Chair.
Mr. White, I hear that voice. I can't see you. There you are.
Oh, there I am. No, as I always did when I was a city councilor, whether it was in favor of what I said or I always express, the appreciation for the work that people do on the ZBA, because it's not like you're making a huge sum of money, and a lot of it is very aggravating. And again, in this case, as I said, you were put in a very difficult position. And I'm going to take the necessary steps by filing suit, but please don't take it personal. Okay,
No.
I just want to make that clear. Anything I do, it's for either Denise, and the zoning amendments were done by me as a former elected official because of the concerns I have. But again, I appreciate everything, and you ran a very good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for that courtesy and what you said. And we feel the same way. I do. I've been around a long time with you folks, so it's a tough case, but we had to see what was in front of us, and that's why I said we'll see what the future brings. Good luck to you both. Thank you. Nice to see you again.
You all.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ivy, I didn't even see you there. I'm sorry. So that's that. Now, are we ready to go? What do I have here now? Other business? No. Okay, we're done unless somebody has some other business they want to discuss. Olivia, your hand is up. Is there a reason?
Yes, may I briefly bring something up?
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how the board would deal with this or if the city has some kind of overarching requirement for this, but I believe this was the first case that I have seen that used AI generated images, which I find acceptable if that is made explicitly clear. But it feels a little misleading to provide artificially generated images without expressly saying that that's what they are in how they might impact our decision.
And what images were those?
That was the image of the four foundations.
Okay. That's a good thing to bring up. I think it's good for the future. That's what some of these meetings are about is, yes, Mr. White's hand is up.
Yeah, I made it expressly clear. Now, I know a lot of times at meetings, people go through a lot of things, but I made it expressly clear that was submitted to you was saying it was AI generated in my appeal. Then when I presented it to you, it was. And then during the discussions, I also said that that was generated artificially and that the building in the lower left of the lot, it was not in Denise Provost's issue because that was not in the abutting lot. I'm very careful about that as an attorney, so I just want to make that clear. I mean, it does make sense, moving forward. You definitely want to make sure because we see all kinds of stuff AI generated now. I hope I met my
Mr. White, yes, absolutely. And you did nothing wrong in this case, but it sparked something in me that made me realize that we should have potentially some kind of policy or requirement around that because not everyone potentially will be as forthcoming as you were.
Thank you. Thank you both. Kit, you can put that down for some notes to talk with be it either Dan or even Mr. Shapiro as we go forward. It's a good thought. Thank you. I think it's a great suggestion. Anything else anybody has to say? No? I want to compliment all of you tonight for your comments and how you presented yourself. You were all very really together. You had the words. You were very professional and very astute, and I thank you. Make us proud. These are sometimes hard, difficult cases. We want everybody to be happy, and that's what we try to do. So thank all of you for all your help. Thank you, Brian, for acting clerk tonight.
Welcome.
And
I have
thank
one more
you to,
duty.
yeah, one more time. Here we go. It's coming up. And I want to thank Kit and Dan for taking care of the public comments for us and all the folks that came in to represent their companies and our people too. Our guy from ISD, Mr. Shapiro, and Dan. Thanks all of you and Kit as always. So without further ado, could I please have make a motion to close the meeting?
I move to adjourn the March 4th, 2026 meeting of the Somerville Zoning Board of Appeals.
May I please have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ann Brockelman. All in favor, please say aye. Zach Zaremba.
Aye.
Olivia Mobay.
Aye.
Ann Brockelman.
Aye.
Thecia Daglian.
Aye.
Brian Cook.
Aye.
And Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show it was unanimous to adjourn the meeting. What a surprise. Take care, everybody. Stay warm.
Bye-bye.
Spring's coming. Spring's coming.
Thank you.